Outformation class. We welcome everybody. Bernani Kawun, Sanan Iabab. I'm a student teacher of the master teacher, Panabab Yanun, who's known in his day and time as Dr. Malachi York. Today we'll be reading a reading called Needs. One, if any one of you is questioned concerning spirits, your response is, what do you mean by spirit? For the beast man, this devil needs you to believe in spirit, for he needs you to have fear, to have fright and terror. For you see, he has no ba, soul. He has no ethereal family, ak, or no kabitu. He only has a hat, body, and ka, spirit, like all others flesh-eating beasts, animals. Without ba, soul, and etheric family, no one on the other side to receive you. So he spent billions trying to raise fear in you because you have pa sakum, the powers, to connect with other worlds. So he has all kinds of stories about ghosts, spooks, spirits, paranormals to link his doctrine of religion and belief in unseen, unproven, unconfirmed spooks. Many shows on TV, Ghost Hunters, or The Hunting, The World Beyonds, Paranormal, Quest for the Unknown, psychics who claim to speak to the devil, to the dead. All kinds of pretending in their own will, lie, and back them in their lies. They, over the years, have spent billions of cinemas or movies, pictures on ghosts, vampires, Frankenstein, werewolf, zombies, mummies, demons, devils, possessions, jinns, gorgons, goblins. They use them in all kinds of films to make sure they touch all old and young. Spooky or funny, it's all about this fear of the unknown. So the spirit in our life concern, you begin to wonder and want to know, is there life after death for me? They need you to confirm it for them. But you being only taught by them and their doctrine have thus implied that your knowledge is neither much nor little. He wants you to know, why do you not inquire of your ethereal parents, our ancestors, as your brothers in Yoruba or Voodoo? They contact the dead. You do not. They need you to open a gate for them. So they create Wicca, Ouija board, Satanism, witches, warlocks, shamans, put all on TV, cinemas. Again, he spends billions. Again, you did not accept. Some did follow him into these cults or caverns, but for the most part, you ignore his devilishment, music, hard rock, metal, and the likes. So he returned his strongest method, religion. He created many Christian groups who speak of Holy Ghost, Holy Spirits, angels, guardian angels, spirit, gods. Then speaking in tongue, possession by spirits, out-of-body experiences, astral traveling, printed millions of books, set up groups, retreat, gave them all kinds of names, stones, crystals, candles, beads, incense, oils, symbols, chart, zodiac astrology, Sufism, mysticism, making all kinds of promises to you if you believe as he believed. He needs your gold soul. He only goes up to 6 ether. You need from 8 ether to transform, as the 8 Sebzet need the 9 of the Camino to open the gate, the stargate, travel the vortex. They can't feel. They lost their souls and their curse and enforced it by their evil actions over these 6,000 years of mistreating everything and everybody, as well as mistreating their own bodies with drugs, unclean, healthy foods. They endanger lives, the abuse of nature, animals, insects, people. They lost their very soul, and as such, this is their last stop. Once they die, they become lost spirit beings. Some trapped here as ghosts, demons, ghouls, tormentors. So they need you to clean them, and they see you by the 23rd Psalms, line 3, which was taken from the spell number 125 in the Egyptian book of the coming forth by dawn, They read, he restored my soul. And this is what David said after he mixed his seed or holy soul with the Hittite, Kenite woman named Bathsheba, wife of Uriah, and Hittite daughter of Elima. The mother of Jedidiah, who they called Solomon, who because of this David lost his soul and became very evil. But in the end, David had his soul restored. So the Canaanite of this day seek the name to be cleansed, shaved, born again, filled with a holy soul, the gold soul. They give lots of wealth to Negroes, preach who teach about receiving the Holy Ghost, laying of the hands, speaking in tongue, healing. They will give them anything, big churches, cars, you name it, much wealth, TV, time. Jump to jump, sing, shout to bring the Holy Ghost, then lay on hands and give it up to them. Once they see the ministers, pastors, reverend, bishop don't have the non-ether, they lost their own soul like David and Solomon. They have no use to them. Once they try them in the Masonic Lodge, test them in the dark to see if they can see blindfolded, and they let them become Masonic or Shriners, Knights of Templars, Royal Arcs, Knights of Columbus, Alhambras, Odd Fellows, Rosicrucian, Astara. They created all kinds of group pretending to have the ancient Egyptian secrets, hoping to get it from you. Once that failed, they separated black lodges and temples of Negroes from Caucasoids. Next, they created other so-called black groups like Moorish Science Temple, Moorish Zionists, Temple of the Moorish Jews, Nation of Islam, 5%ers, Hebrew Israelite, other Muslim sects for the Negroid to join. You name it, he will create it. You name it, he will create it. Or as it's put, incorporate, in ink, or short for incoherent, and able to be understood, then incriminate them, or ink. Once he saw they did not work in fact, men like Rabbi Whitworth, Arthur Matthews of 1892 to 1965 was a great man and birthed black Israelites of many kinds who did not respect Caucasian or Sheikh Daoud. Ahmed Faisal of 1891 to 1980, a Sunni Muslim black man, had many followers of his own, and Noble Drew Ali, 1886 to 1929, and Marcus Garvey, 1887 to 1940. These men became leaders of the black people, as well as Yahweh ben Yahweh and others again. His plan backfired on him. How he turned on these great men, killed or imprisoned them, but still they did not receive a soul. Now, as they know the year is soon to come, now they see they have lost respect world over as of 2000 to 2003 AD. They know their 6,000 year rule is over. They will die. They fear what is next for them. Some have went nuts, starting killing others, starting wars. Others are drinking. Others having sex with anyone. They need to know what is next. Now they want to integrate with you. First they give you wealth, make you look like them. So they open up their source of wealth, music. Let you Negroes movies, models, talk shows. They even give you your own shows. A look inside your family life, how you think, how you really live. Can they tame you, remove or hate of them from you? So you know you see the Negro movies all about them, TV shows with rappers, families, made gangster into cops for TV, sidekicks. They put Negroes in game shows so as to see how they think, what they think. They let them win court suits, silver suits, to put wealth in Negroes' hands so they won't have to give up their wealthy lifestyle to be a Negroid. Nip tuck to alter their African nose, new perms to look like their fur, color contacts, all because now they see the pure holy blood that has the soul they need is an African. But pure African blood was too strong or had disease they put there in Africa. So they turned back to their Negroid slaves, their pets, those wannabes, embraced them to get their bloods in their bodies in hopes that when they die, they will travel with an ak, bird, from 6 ether to 7 ether unto 8 ether to save their offerings by mixing, true incorporate. So they spend billions trying to find ghosts, spooks, spirits, claim they're speaking to dead people. So they claim speaking to dead people. So you will step up and do it for real. Why did their dead not tell them about 9/11 before it took place? So they can read the future for you, so you will step up and really do it. Why did not they see the weather that is destroying their lives? Claim they see or saw was abducted by beings of all kinds of shapes, colors, types, from other planets or beneath Earth, claiming they took them aboard ships, took some to other worlds, hoping you would step forward and reveal the truth for them, even use the 6 tricks that E.T. had sex with them, liars. None of it worked or is working on them who eyes are open. Of course, they always get some of us to believe in their fictions, their lies, their mysteries. Always some, but not those. But not those or what we need. Now all his needs, you gladly sacrifice yours, for he has no next life. His religions are man-made from your way of life in Egypt. He needs you. You don't need him and his fake false beliefs. You drench yourself in his filth and dirt. He has nothing. He has no one. He does not even have a soul and no life after death for him. He needs you. Will he lay down his pride and ego and submit to his real mother and fathers, the African, or pass away as others did in the past? Will he counterfeit it in your religion, deceive you into thinking that you really have a connection with a God, deity, by which every name he teaches you, writes concerning the true Egyptian way of life, change for you to believe? Nwapu proclaims that true good news, not a ghost spell, contact with your real descendants, the non-ether beings who link by way of your own family members and friends who have crossed over and wait for you. For you with Ba and Ach and Kha and Khat and Ku and Sakim, you have a life never ending. And Unk, a key waits for you. This is the only one of the 9 lives you have had. Unmistakably, Panatharu are real as nature. The powers and whomsoever want to approach them must do so in soul state and ether state. Otherwise, a cat or ka coming by any other way is not welcome. Yet all can come regardless of race if they submit to the truth about self and kind. That's the end of the reading. If there's any reread, concerns, questions, I don't know if anybody had any questions. Tua got the brother in the back. Okay, you said, can I explain what is ether? Okay, starting with the strongest ether, right, which we know as non-ether. Non-ether is the combination of all existing gases, conscious gases, and conscience gases, or conscientious gas, right, in the universe. And pretty much what it is conscious gas. It's what make you think. It's what make you reason. It's what everything is made up of. When you look into science, they teach you about dark matter. They teach you about dark energy. All these are different forms of ether, right? When dealing with the physical world, right, there's different levels of vibration or substance, right, on this physical or material plane. right? When you're dealing with ether, on this physical plane, the lightest element will be known to us as the hydrogen element, which is composed of one proton and one electron, right? Once you get past or you get under hydrogen, you're starting to step into subatomic particles, right? Those subatomic particles are considered ether, or anything beyond or lower than the hydrogen atom would be considered ether. This includes quantum particles as well. So ether is something that's linked to all the different planes, the physical plane, the spiritual plane, the mental plane, the spiritual plane. All these are linked by way of ether, or what we call achak. Does that answer your question? Also, just to add on, it's also the link to our ancestors as well. When we're trying to make that connection to our ancestors, or what we call our salafu, right? When we make it to Panataru, our overseers, is by way of achak, or ether, that you're making that connection. Because this all happens by way of tone, sounds, vibrations, right? That is actually taking place. When you're making the connection, it's frequencies that's taking place when you're making these connections back to Panataru. Tour.
Roll back.
Roll back.
Could you, what is the name of that reading?
The name of the reading is called Needs.
Needs. Could you read from 1 to 9?
From 1 to 9?
Tour.
Tour. 1. If any one of you is questioned concerning spirits, your response is, what do you mean by spirit? For the beast man, this devil needs you to believe in spirit, for he needs you to fear, to have fright and terror. For you see, he has no ba, soul. He has no ethereal family, ak, or kabitu. He only has a khat, body, and kha, spirit. Like all other flesh-eating beasts, animals, without ba, soul, and an ethereal family, no one on the other side to receive you. He spends billions trying to raise fear in you because you have pa-sakum, the powers, to connect with other worlds. So he has all kinds of stories about ghosts, spooks, spirits, paranormal to link to his doctrine of religion and belief in unseen, unproven, unconfirmed spooks. Many shows on TV, Ghost Hunters, or The Hunting, The World Beyond, Paranormal, Quest for the Unknown, psychics who claim to speak to the dead, all kinds of pretending, and their own will lie and back them in their lies. They, over the years, have spent billions on cinemas or movies, pictures on ghosts, vampires, Frankenstein, werewolves, zombies, mummies, demons, devils, possessions, jinns, gorgons, goblins. They use them in all kinds of film to make sure they touch all, old and young, spooky or funny. It's all about the fear of the unknown. So the spirit in our life concern, you begin to wonder and want to know, is there life after death? For me, they need you to confirm it for them. That was up to 9. Come on. Did y'all just tour?
To the end of the reading, the last portion of that. Can you reread that, thanks?
Okay, so I just continue from 9
the very,
all the way to the end.
No, from the very end itself, just before you ended.
Oh, just before I ended.
Yeah.
Okay. So I start.
You can choose where you want to start.
I start at 31.
Good.
31. Now all his needs you gladly sacrifice yours, for he has no next life. His religions are man-made from your way of life in Egypt. He needs you. You don't need him and his fake false beliefs. You drench yourself in his filth and dirt. He has nothing. He has no one. He does not even have a soul and no life after death for him. He needs you. He lays down his pride and ego and submit to his real mothers and fathers, the African, or pass away as many others did in the past. What he counterfeited in your religion deceive you into thinking that you really have a connection with a God, deity, by whichever name he teaches you, rites concerning the true Egyptian way of life, change for you to believe. Nuwapu proclaims the true good news, not a ghost spell. Contact with your real descendants, the non-ether beings who link by way of your own family members and friends who have crossed over and wait for you. For you with Ba and Ak and Ka and Khat and Ku and Sahim, you have a life never ending. A Ki waits for you. This is only one of the 9 lives you have had. Unmistakably, Panataru are real as nature. The powers and whosoever wants to approach them must do so in soul state, in ether state. Otherwise, a cat or ka coming by any other way is not welcome. Yet all can come regardless of race if they submit to the truth about self and kind.
All can come of any race if they submit to the truth.
Right.
That's very powerful right there.
Right. Yet all can come regardless of race if they submit to the truth about self and kind.
So they have to accept who they are before they can.
Right. They have to accept their nature.
That's what it is.
Of who and
Thank
what
you.
they are. Yeah. Okay, I see 2 hands in the back.
Well, Ambassador, this is just for my clarification.
Okay.
When we do our chant, Patadaku Patadak, when it says Panan Safa Kawun, is that book referring to the Akasha records or is it referring to the Scroll of Eyes? Or what is that book that's referring to?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what scroll is referring to. I can't say.
Yes.
But I will say this to add on, right? Like what I'm reading from, right? This is from the Scroll of Eyes, right? What I'm reading from, or just a part, all the actual facts, right? That's what it's called, the Scroll of Eyes, or the beautiful words, or what we call Pa Meditat. And on the top, it'll say, Amun Nababre Akak Pata Zeti, right? The sacred papyrus. And it says Atun Wu Amun, right, by way of the Scroll of Eyes, and that's what's actually on the top. So a lot of these readings are the Scrolls of Eyes. The Akasha record is a scroll that's probably going to be coming out soon, right? But the actual facts are the Scrolls of Eyes.
So, can you explain why is he a beast man and why doesn't he have a soul?
Okay.
For newcomers.
All right. It's all right. Okay, now I'm going to read this one part. It says, for the beast man, this devil needs you to believe in his spirit, for he needs you to fear, to have fright and terror. For you see, he has no ba, soul. He has no ethereal family, Akh, or Kabitu. He only has a Khat, body, and Ka, spirit, like all others flesh, eating beasts, animals. So, one, we have to understand what ether is, right? We have to understand what spirit is, what soul is, right? And what the physical body is contained of. Right, so when you're dealing with the beast or the beast man, he's 6 ether. What's considered 6 ether, right? We as Nagaros or the Negro race is considered 9 ether, right? 6 ether is the death of 9 ether, right? Which is the Mukasu man, because he's not a part of natural nature. Now, when we're talking about natural nature, we're talking about something that nature naturally created. Right, as you see on the planet, you have natural fruits, right, that nature grows out of itself, and then you have fruit that man comes and do genetic splicing on and breed, or put 2 seeds together and create a new hybrid fruit. That's not by way of natural nature. That's man-made. The same thing happened with the creation of the Caucasoid. The Caucasoid was created, or he was grafted from another race. We as Nagaru were natural beings, or we were born here on this planet. We was the first who seeded the planet here. They were made by way of experiment, right? Which lower their ethers, right? This is why through history you'll see that they're the creator of wars. They're the creator of famine. Everything about their nature is wicked or evil. They're evil by way of natural nature because they're created differently than we are. They do not have Ba, soul. So they don't have the connection to the other side or to the oversouls like we do. They don't have a Ku, right, or oversoul as we as Nagaros do. So they don't have nobody to come and get them or to receive them, right, when they pass on from this physical planet, right, or from this physical world. They don't have nobody to put them up or bring them up as we do. We have that because we have Ba, soul. So we have that connection to those other or those higher beings to actually come and get us. And this is why we move differently. We dance differently. We sing differently. Our biorhythm is different than theirs are because we are made up of different ethers, or we're made up of a higher ether. We think different than they do, than the beast man or the caucasoid man do. And that's because we are non-ether beings. They are 6 ether beings, so they think differently. They move differently. They talk differently. They look differently. They're recessive beings. Did that answer your question?
Sure.
All right.
Robert,
Robert.
could you read the area when Panabab talk about Marcus Garvey? You read
Sure.
a couple people, and then it's something about Marcus Garvey wasn't given back his soul or something like that. I'm not sure. I just want clarity on that.
Tour. I
And
want to
two
clear.
things. Two
Okay,
things.
tour.
And the first one, because I think that came much was something. The Sabzatu needs the Kabatu or something like that. Mm-hmm. Could you read that little area to let me get that clear?
Tour. Okay, yeah, because I kind of wanted to make it, because it was more so the way it was reading. It was talking about the Mukasu. As far as still didn't get back their soul, but I'm gonna reread it for the part you're talking about. As far as with it says, next they created other so-called black groups like Moorish Science temples, Moorish Zionists, temples of the Moorish Jews, Nation of Islam, 5%ers, Hebrew Israelite, other Muslim sects for the Negroids to join. You name it, he will create it, or as it puts, incorporated in ink, or short for incoherent, unable to be understood, then incriminate them, or ink. Once he saw they did not work, in fact, men like Rabbi Whitworth, Arthur Matthews of 1892 to 1965 was a great man and birthed black Israelites of many kinds who did not respect Caucasians or Sheikh Daoud Ahmed Faisal. A Sunni Muslim black man had many followers of his own, and Noble Drew Ali of 1886 and 1929, and Marcus Garvey of 1887 to 1940. These men became leaders of black people, as well as Yahweh ben Yahweh and others again. His plan backfired on him. How he turned on these great men, killed or imprisoned them, but still they did not receive a soul. Because, he was saying, right, in context, he was saying how the Mukasu, right, they create these incorporations, or what they call incorporate, right, to incorporate into incorporate religion, to incorporate in our DNA, to incorporate, to mix it into the seed, right, to see whether they will make it on the other side. He's talking about the Mukasu, because the only way for them to really be saved is that if they intermix their seed with the Negroid, right, with the Negroid man or woman. That's the only way they'll be saved. So even to go on the other side, he said this is why they do the cinemas and they do the fear. They want to see, they want to use us, right? And this is why he said they set up certain secret societies so we can confirm to them that there's life after death, because they can't confirm it. But we as Nagaros, because we have the connection, we can actually confirm it while still being alive, because we have Ba. They don't. There is no life after death for them. They go into ghost state, and then they eventually dissipate into existence. Okay, the commander right here had a hand first, then the sister in the back.
I'm back again.
Rahubat.
You were speaking about, like, for instance, moving up to a higher life, like if you transition, where did this come? Because if we transition and someone is going to meet us on the other side, how did crying come into play? Well, how did the crying, when someone transitioned, they start to cry, but yet and still, do they know that someone there is going to meet them if they're doing right, that they're going to transition and move from a physical to a spiritual? How did the
Well, for Negroids, one, it's not the person who passes who cries, right? And this is why Panabab Yanun said that when people pass or when people transition, we're not supposed to cry, right? But being that we have physical attachments, right? We have physical attachment, we have emotions, right? We get attached to people. And this is where the emotions come in or the crying happens. But this is why when someone passes, we as Nuwapians, we celebrate their transition, right? And it's supposed to be festive. It's not supposed to, you're not supposed to mourn, or you're not supposed to be saddened when somebody transitions, because all of us on this plane is going to transition, right? So what happens is yes, it will be ancestors that's waiting on the other side, right, to guide them, to guide those beings, right, who transcended, but but they don't cry. When they pass, they pass.
Sure. I'm saying before Partner Bab Yanun broke this down to us.
Okay.
Was there other people before him that knew that there was another place for Nubians to transition to go? Because as you're a child, you've been taught when your grandmother passed or whoever, you cry behind them. So I was trying to figure out, how did this come into play? That
comes by way of religion. All that comes by way of religion, right? Because it was the cry was really when it's a fear thing, and this is what he's explaining even in this reading. The needs that they need us is needs because it's a fear thing with them. They don't know what's on the other side, right? But when you know what's on the other side, there's nothing to fear. So it's really fearing. When you crying, right, or when somebody passes, it's still a fear that's inside of you because it's a part of the unknown. But they created all these cinemas, these movies, and all these things to psychologically have an effect on your mind, to have you fearing the unknown or something that you don't know about because they don't know about it. So it's something psychological when it comes from religion. Things like that come from religion. But in actuality, that doesn't happen. Now, as far as people, there were teachings. These teachings are teachings for thousands of years. You know, in ancient Egypt, they didn't have words for like death, you know, or you dying. It always dealt with transcending or you going to the next plane, right? So what happens is these teachings been on this planet for thousands of years, right? But they've been buried away. They've been hidden for a long time. Just as he said, right here, he said, so they need you to clean them, and they see by the 23rd Psalms, line 3, which was taken from the spell number, right, 125 in the Egyptian coming forth by day, which they call the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But in Egypt, it's not called the Book of the Dead. It's called the coming forth by day. It's something that's constantly happening. It's a transformation. It's something that you're coming into day by day. So it's something that they try to switch it over. He said, they read, he restored my soul, right? And this is what David said after he mixed his holy seed or holy soul with the Hittites, Canaanite women named Bathsheba, wife of Uriah, and the Hittites, daughter of Eliam, the mother of Jedediah, who they call Solomon, who because of the David lost his soul and became very evil. But in the end, David had his soul restored. So these are things that's explaining where they taking stories because they don't know about life after death. They don't know about these things. Now, there's certain people on this planet who did have contact with the other side who still kept ancient African rituals, right? But what they did, as he's explaining in this reading, they took things like dealing with Yoruba, right? Voodoo, and they gave us that and said, this is supposed to be your spiritual way of life because you are dealing with real spirit forces, but those are six ether spirit forces, right? You know, Wicca and things like that, right? Those are six ether spirit forces. We don't deal with that. We don't deal with anything that, you know, that asks you for any blood offering or any god or any beings that ask you for any smokes or any alcohol. We don't deal with spirit forces. Our ancient African ancestors did not ask for those things. Those are things that people who brought in, who invaded Africa, came with their own ways, right, of life and put it on us and pushed it on us. You know, and say, this is what you believe in this, believe that, and say, these are your ancestors, so you could pray to them. You could, you know, that's religion that creates that. Did you say, okay, the system back to that question?
I have a really quick question.
Okay.
So how do you know if your soul needs to be restored, and how does a white man confirm that there is an afterlife through us?
Okay, you said, okay, I got the first part. You said, how does the white man confirm whether there's an afterlife through us?
Yeah, you said that they're able, by coming up with the secret societies, they're able to determine.
Well, they tried, but it didn't work. Right? The point was they tried to confirm it through us to see, is there life after death? But what happens is there's no life after death for them, right? Being that we have a ether, soul vibrates or burn at what's called a ether, right? As he explained in the beginning, or not in the beginning, but he said he only goes up to 6 ether. He's talking about the Caucasoid man, right? You need from 8 ether to transform. As the subset, 8 subset need the 9 ether of the Camino to open up the Stargate. Excuse me, that's what you wanted me to read earlier as well, right? It just came to me as I was reading it, right? So what happens is that in order for him to really last, or his seed last on this planet, he would have to intermix physically, but ethically, right? He cannot make it past 6 ether, right? This is what you have to understand. You have to understand that when you're dealing with this physical planet, that you're looking at just the shell, right? But within the shell, right, you also have the spirit, right? You have the soul, and you have the mind, right? That this is also a part of. So you are more than one body. So you vibrate on more than one vibration or one nutational rate. You vibrate at different vibrations. So what happens is, although we're looking at one thing, right? When you're looking at a Mukaso, or when you're looking at a Caucasoid man, he doesn't have those 4. He only has physical body and spirit. And spirit gives him the ability to be animated, right? Or to have a life force on this planet, right? We as Nagato have spirit and we have soul. And that soul is the connection to the other side. From when you pass, you'll be able to ascend. Because the soul is the emotional seat, right? It's the emotional seat that take you from one plane to the next plane. In ancient time, it was known as what they call a binu bird or bananu bird, right? And there was a little bird, and you saw it on top of a boat in ancient Egypt, or the Menjet boat, or they call it the boat of 1,000 years. And it was in symbolic of your soul making this journey through the underworld. In the underworld, you went into the underworld when you passed or when you was ascending on. And that bird was there guiding you. That's your soul. They don't have that. They have only spirit. So when they die, right, they turn into ghosts or 3 ether. We ascend up. They descend down when they pass on. So in order for them to have life, right, they have to intermix with us. Now, to go into your question as far as how do you know whether you have a soul? A soul is more like a battery, or is likened, as I should say, to a battery, meaning for us here on the physical planet, meaning you can be drained from the soul by intermixing your seed with theirs, right? Especially the woman, right? Or the sacred feminine, right? Because the woman carries the mitochondria DNA and is an internal being. So when she intermixes with a Caucasoid male, right, she loses her soul, right? Opposed to when a male Nagaru intermixes with a Caucasian woman, right, she gains a soul. So what happens is you gain your soul by reading actual facts and patarak, right? By getting back to your ancient way of life, the way you used to live, right? By chanting, by praying, by meditating, by making a connection back to your ancient ancestors once again, by eating healthy. It's not that you just pop up and things is going to happen. It's not an overnight thing, but it's a gradual thing that you have to do. It's a gradual transformation. But the soul, but you as an Nagaru, you have by right, you have a soul. You was born with one, right? But it's dealing with levels of vibration. That's all it is. Because once you intermix your seed by way of genetic kiss, right, you start acting like them. This is what he's talking about. They try to incorporate, right, themselves into us, or they try to integrate into our race by intermixing their seed. So that's thinking the way they think, dressing the way they dress, talking the way they talking, getting their jobs, right, working for them. These are all things that incorporate you to actually think like them, including trying to mix their seed with you, making it seem like they're the same as us. So they give the illusion that we're the same, but in actuality, we're not. We have different blood types. We have a different makeup than they do. Everything about us is different. Their bones only goes 6,000 years. Our go back millions of years. We have an ancient blood type. They don't. They have recessive genetics. But because we've all been intermixed here, especially in America, we've been intermixed. We all have that seed of the devil somewhere inside of us. Right? So the battle is not always just the physical devil that you're looking at, or the physical white or Caucasian man that you're looking at. Like, oh, I don't hang around Caucasians, or I don't have no Caucasian, or I don't do. No, you have to also worry about the spirit forces that intermixed inside of you. That's what the book, The Master Secret that just came out called Divide and Conquer. That's what they do. That's how they divide and conquer. They come, right? They invade. They intermix their seed. They spread their language. This is how they took over the world. This is how they took over the world over. You know, they went to different nations. They came in. They broke up whatever was there. And so when you go to all these ancient lands in South America, in North America, in Africa, right, in Europe, in China, when you go to the ancient lands, you'll see all these relics. You'll see all these bones. You'll see an ancient lost civilization that's there, but there you'll see Caucasians everywhere. And they're the ones who's giving the information and saying they this and they that, and all our sources come from them. Yet they can't make the connection to our ancestors that we can. When you look at the pyramids, when you're looking at the walls of Egypt, all that runs in your DNA. You're awakening certain lacking genetics that's inside of you that will activate when you actually see your ancestors. This is why they try to hide Egypt. They didn't want us to open up those different doors, because once we open up those doors, that's going to activate certain genetics that's inside of us. That's going to bring that godlike being back into play. This is why it's a concentrated effort, right, for them to push religion on us, to push an unseen God on us. You understand what I'm saying? Did that answer your question?
Robert. I just wanted to ask a question, the same on the same note regarding like the Indians and the Asians. do they also have like, you know, a life after? In other words, do they have the soul? How does that work for them too? Because we're talking about between the Nagaru and like the Mukasas and stuff. But what about the other races? Can you help me to like understand or understand what happens with?
Okay. Now you really what makes you a Nagaru? One, right? There's a lot of factors, right, that takes play in that. But as far as when you're talking about ether, different races are made up of different ethers. When you're dealing with the pure Nagaru, you're talking about non-ether. When you're dealing with the Dravadu or the Dravidians, right, you're dealing with 8 ether, right? When you're dealing with the Mongoloids, right, you're dealing with 7 ether. And when you're dealing with the Caucasian females, you're dealing with 6 ether. When you're dealing with the Caucasian males, you're dealing with 5 ether, right? Now, as you can read, right, it said you need from 8 ether to transform, right? Now, the process by which, you know, is this person 8 ether or is that person 7 ether? I wouldn't know that. I can't look at a Mongoloid and say, no, they're 7 ether. But they are connected to higher planes than the Mukasu. They are connected to higher planes than the Mukasu. This is why they're more spiritual than they are. You know, and it takes for them, as Pandabab Yanun explained in the past, it takes them more, right, for them to do more spiritual deeds. This is why you see like the Buddhists, or you see, you know, a lot of in India, right, or in the Hindu religion, you see a lot of dealing with chakras and things like that, more so than in Africa. Although we were the ones who taught them those teachings, right, you see them doing more spiritual deeds because they have lower ether. We have higher ether, so we do less, right? We just lost our way. But genetic-wise, etheric-wise, it exists. It has to just be reawakened. To her.
Ask you to read again just those last 4 lines where it's stated with those very same races, if they accept,
Right.
it would lend an answer what she is probably asking.
Right. It say unmistakably, Panataru are real as nature, the powers, and whomsoever want to approach them must do so in soul state. Must do so in soul state and ether state. Otherwise, a cat or ka spirit coming by any other way is not welcome. Yet, all can come regardless of race if they submit to the truth about self and kind. That does have nothing to do with whether they'll be transformed or not, though. You see, because what happens is, remember, as I mentioned earlier, all planes are linked by way of achak or ether. All of them. Ether is everything. So it said you can come by way of ether or by soul. So they are still linked to the etheric plane, as we are here as well, right? You know, but doesn't mean that they're going to make it because they don't have what's called the Kabitu, or the builders, or those who are responsible for the 5th plane or the higher abodes, who created the higher abodes, or who created the lower abodes. Those are the people, or your oversouls, the ku, right, to actually come and bring you up or receive you. As he said, without ba soul and etheric family, no one on the other side to receive you. That's what we have, and that's what they don't have. Tua.
I think may apply to all those 7, 8, and 9 ethers, but I don't know if that could apply to a 5 ether or 6.
Right. Well, when it comes to 6 ether, right?
I think that may only apply to like Dravidians and Chinese, Mongoloids.
Right.
It may not necessarily apply to Caucasoids.
No, it doesn't apply to Caucasians. No, it doesn't.
Right. So
but as I said, when it comes to the Caucasian women, right, they are able to receive it
From us.
by way of
Yes.
the Nagaru males.
Yes, by way of Nataru.
Right. But in turns, he loses it, or he weakens himself. He weakens his soul by giving it to her.
Right. So then you can have Hispanics, you can have Dravidians, you can have
Right.
different.
Because those are people of color.
Those are people.
Those are all
Right.
those.
They can make it.
Yeah. All was somehow, some way, came, from the Nagaru seed.
From us, exactly.
Even parts of the Caucasian as well.
Sure.
Even parts of the Caucasian came from the Bushmen.
I am hearing in there that catchword soul, because even self he said they all welcome. Panabab Yagun, Yanana said they all welcome, but he still say about the soul.
Yeah.
You just said that.
Yeah. You need a soul.
You need that soul.
There's no question in that. To make it to ascend, to the higher abode. And this is when he said they go to spending billions. And this is why in church they focus on the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit. Everything is about the Spirit, but they ignore the soul. They push the Spirit. Oh yeah, Spirit, you gotta have the Spirit, or this and that, or the Spirit of God and all that. But they don't push the soul. Even in the Bible, the Spirit in the Bible is nefas or nephish, right? And the soul is ruah, or the ruh is the soul, right? So even in the Bible, there was two definitions for spirit and soul, but they tried to intermix both of them by way of religion, and most people think that soul and spirit is the same thing when they're not. Now, in ancient Africa or in ancient Egypt, right, they had a symbol for Ba, right, and they had a symbol for Ka, and there were two different symbols, and they meant two different things. Because you have two different spirits and you have two different souls. You have a roa, which is the breath, right? Or the when your first intake of oxygen, when you're born as a child, it ignites your solar plex. That's that soul, or the roa. And then you have the soul that transition you on what we're talking about, right? What the reading is talking about. That soul, that divine seed that links you to the ancestors. And then you have spirit, right? As in spirit that animates you, or that give you, or the self, or your personality, your physical person. When you say that person has a different spirit, right? And then you have spirit that's linked to the ethers, as in the spiritual world. Any more questions? You can.
I just have one more quick question.
Toa.
Is there any way that the Negroid man can be restored if he sleeps with a Caucasoid woman? Like, can his soul be restored, or is it if he did it in ignorance, or is it just too late for him?
Is it? Yeah, yes, it is a way. There's always a way, for you to be restored, because you are part of the seed. You have that soul seed. So there's always a way that you can be restored. Sometimes it may be too late if you don't know, right? But there's always a way. There's different cleansing process that you can go through. If you a female, being that she's internal and have the mitochondrial DNA, it's a longer process, right, for the female than for the males. But both can be restored. There's certain rituals or special rituals or ancient rituals that used to take place to cleanse certain things out. But yes, there's always a way that you can cleanse, and that's by remixing or mixing in with a pure Nagaru. Back with the pure Nagaru. And regaining your soul once again. Because it's all about energy forces. We have to see these things as forces or energies. Everything that we're talking about is different forces and different energies. A lot of times we'll say soul, we'll say spirit, but we're not looking at it like it's a frequency, it's a vibration, it's a force, it's an energy. All these things are energy forces.
True.
And some of us are able to tap or have a link to those energy forces. The same way how we have a link to the mental reservoir. All of us in this room has a link by way of our mind, right? By way of our brain, has a link to the mental reservoir, which gives us thought. And that's by the mental plane. The same way people have a link to the soul or connection to the soul.
2 questions.
I'd like to know when a Nagaru female and a Nagaru male mix with any race that is beneath them, like 80 to 70 to 60, do that bring their ether down to their level, or what happened to them? Do they change? Because I see a lot of times when our people mix with other races, they takes on their, it's like they change, even the voices change.
It takes on their spirit forces, right? Which makes it harder for us to make the connection with our own ancient spirit forces, right? Or our Salafu and our Natharu, right? So, yes, it does change them. Yes, it does change their appearance. Yes, it does change the genetics, right? But they are still Nagaru. They are still Nagaru. They still have soul. They still have that connection to the other side, to our ancient ancestors. But this is what happens, right? It really depends on how intermixed you are, right? And this is what I mean. For those, because you have people who we may think are Mukasu, but they're not. You know, they may have some great grandfather was a Nagaru, right? But because there's so much spirit forces in that particular person that's of Mukasu, then everything about that person is Mukasu. And it no longer makes that connection to the Nagaru side. If you make the connection and accept the Nagaru side and tap into that part of your DNA, because your DNA is still there. It's a code. You have a genetic code, a genome, right? And within your genome, you have different lineage that's there within your genetics. And some are still Nagaru. Even when you look at most of these Mukasu in this day and time, they are mixed with Nagarus. The pure Mukasu is blonde head, blue eyes, right? A lot of them that have black hairs and all that, they are intermixed with the Nagaru. But because they so far off the lineage line, they're still 6 ether. They still 6 ether. Their ether is not high enough. But for those who are intermixed for the last 400 years, right, during slavery, right, then yes, we have a stronger connection, right, to our Salafu or to our ancestors. Genetically, we have it the same way mentally, the same way spiritually, because why? That connection is more closer. This is why, in order for them to really be saved, or even for yourself to make your genetics stronger, you will have to intermix with a pure African Negroid, because that's the purest of the genes or the purest of the genetics. So it's like you got to go back to that divine essence again, you know, and this is why it's not only about just being here in America, but it's also about going back to Africa. You know, Wunuwap, right? The future of Wunuwap, as it says in Patarak, it says that you won't see the effects until the immediate future, and that's for Africa. So Wunuwap works with nature. It becomes one with nature. So that means that nature also works with us. It works with our body. It works with our mind and our soul. So we have to be in certain temperatures just to activate certain genetics, because we got sun heat genes within us. You know, so we have to eat certain crops, certain foods that's grown on certain lands, right? As Nagaru people. So all this is a part of, just like Panabab Yanun said, right, in the reading, he said the people of South Africa, or the Sans people, he said they have that skin tone. He said you had different people with different skin tone, because remember, we are the humans, or the hue as in color. We are the original humans, right? Or the hue as in colors, because we have 9 different hues, right? As the Nagaru people, meaning we have different shades. But he was explaining that the San people, right, because of the content of gold that was there in southern Africa, right, around South Africa, Tanzania, in those different areas, right, they had that tannish look because of the gold that was in their blood, and the gold that was in the land was in their foods. And you have people, when you go to Sudan, right, you have those people there, right, they almost look purple. They're dark. And he said, I think he said it was because of either the copper or the iron It was one of them, right? Of why they look that skin tone. Because of the things that they was eating, meaning over thousands of years, they was eating certain things from the lands in the region they stayed at. Us being here in America is contradicting our genetic code by things that we're eating. And then they're taking the natural foods and they putting all type of substance and chemicals and hormones and everything else in a book in it. And it's not even naturally made anymore. You have fruits without seeds. You know, everything is about hybrid foods. You know, and even the foods that people think is healthy is really man-made. Like I tell people all the time, you know, because like, you know, us healthy people, right? Or, you know, we know that we try to live the best healthy life. You know, we'll say spinach is, kale is healthy. Kale, not spinach, kale. But kale, right, is actually man-made. Kale was actually made by a German in like the 17 or 1800s, and it was through genetic splicing, and it came from the mustard seed. Kale, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, all that came from the same mustard seed, and it was all invented. And they took it and then they naturally grew it in nature. They took it and then they start growing it and then they start naturally growing in nature. But then we'll be like, oh, I'm getting a kale wrap. You think you're eating healthy. Doesn't mean that it doesn't have the right proteins and the enzymes and whatever you're looking for to have a healthy life. It's just say that the illusion of most of the things that we eat, right? The type of bananas we eat, the type of oranges we eat, most of the things that we eat in this day and time, a lot of time we don't know is actually man-made. Until you do the research on it, you'll be thinking that, oh, now this is something that existed for thousands of years. Most of the fruits and stuff, even when you go to the islands, they got a whole set of fruits that we never even saw here in America. And then you go to Africa, they got a whole another set of fruits that ain't nobody seen, because Africa got all the fruits and all the seeds and everything. You know what I'm saying? You know, so it's, you know, that's the point though. You know, so that's why it's important to be in Africa. Or it's important for us to live a certain way, to have certain spiritual things that we do, to have certain ritual things that we do. I was watching a documentary last night on Egypt. Some of y'all probably saw. It's called The Pyramid Code. I love it. I've seen it plenty of times, right? And it was I think the episode was called The Empowerment of Man, right? And it was explaining that they was explaining on in ancient Egypt how it was important for them. Everything about getting in contact with their ancestors was important by which way they live their life, by which way they live their life. So they was explaining how dancing was important. You know what I'm saying? A lot of time we might look at the sway, we might look at little things that we do, not really realizing that dancing. They even said music, doing music, having our own music, different tones and different things like that. Foods, those different things has a lot to do with our spirituality. We just don't know it because we as Nagaro people, we're rhythmatic people. We have rhythm, we have a soul, right? But we don't feed it as much as we actually need to. You know, the amount of sunlight that we get in America versus Africa. You know, remember what Panabab Yanun said. He said for those who are from the islands, remember he said they have to travel back every few years, right, to become rejuvenated. Because when you're born under that type of sun, right, your genetics is different, right? And you have to go back down south or, you know, near the equator, right, where it shines brighter, right, you know, it's more moisturized and everything is better down there, right, and to rejuvenate yourself. It's the same way for us in Africa. We have to go back to be able to rejuvenate ourselves, you know, because remember, even our ruah or our solar plex is still connected to what? The sun, the outer sun. It's connected to the outer sun and it's connected to the inner sun inside the planet. Anun. Okay, and then after that, after her question, that'll be the last question. So 2 more questions.
It's about a movie that I saw called Panabab Access to Watch the Indictment.
I didn't watch that. Tour, but go ahead.
I watched it, and close to the end, they was discussing the pyramid. What did that have to do with the, if you've seen, with the so-called, the child molestation that they claim? but they were more so into the people dealing with the pyramid, and this is how all of this came about with the lions. And I wanted to know the link between our case and the link between them, because there was dealing with the pyramid, and
Right.
at the end, that's what they were speaking about. It was all about the lies they told.
Right. Right. Now, I would say this. One, I didn't watch the movie, right? But, yes, the pyramids are very important, right? One, in ancient Egypt, we know those pyramids was used for, it was a communication device, right? To Orion into Sirius. And this is why it was lined up to Orion into Sirius, right? Our pyramids were also aligned as well, meaning the ones in Edenton, Georgia, was also aligned. And this is a part of the thing that Panabab Yanun explained, right? They feared that black pyramid, and they feared us building the third pyramid. Because if anybody knows, right before the land got taken, right, we had, before we built anything on the land, we had pictures that we would post up, big pictures that was drawn, right? And like Efu, you know, like the Ashtet restaurant on top of the hill, right? And even the third pyramid. We was about to lay out that third pyramid, you know, and there was in fear of that, because pyramid naturally, because of the shape, naturally attracts certain things. Naturally, as a pyramid, there's certain things that pyramids do in natural nature, you know. So us making that connection, because remember, the pyramid, we had the Magharaj, and the Magharaj, that was the labyrinth. That was a connection that you was making with your ancestors, right? We had the Om chant, never stopping, going 24 hours on our pyramids. So it was a very powerful thing they did. Matter of fact, the Black Pyramid was the last structure that was left on the land. That was the last thing. They was thinking twice before they tore that one down. You know what I'm saying? So that's a part of the thing. So the pyramid was a very powerful thing, but not just the pyramid, but it was everything, because for those who's in the ancient Egyptian order knows that there was different sites where you can make connection to back to your ancient ancestors. But on Tamaray, you had the King Tut site, you had the tetrahedron site, you had the communication site, you had so many different sites that was on Tamaray, right? That was there to help us spiritually. And that's what a lot of people are forgetting, and that's what a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know that a lot of those sites was to get us aligned or in tune back with nature, in tune back with the Natharu again, you know, to make that connection. So they had to eliminate. That's what it's really about. They saw, like, I was listening to a class of Panabab Yanun the other day, and he was saying how, you know, he said, you know, you don't really want to go back to the pyramid. He said, because it ain't what you think. Meaning, when you go to Egypt and you see some guy pissing on the side of a pyramid, you almost feel disrespected, because those Arabs over there, they don't really care about the pyramids, because they know that it ain't their ancestors, right? But when we go there, he's like, you may go there, think that you about to make this connection, and then there's a certain reality over there that, you know, you got these extremists over there that just blow up anything, and that's the mentality over there. He says, so we have to do what? We have to make Egypt over here in America. We had to build Egypt over here. He said, so that meaning that you got to incarnate those ancestors back once again. He said, because we did it before and we can do it again. And that's what they feared. When they saw what Panabab Yanun was doing on Tamaray, they saw a black man, a Negro man, right, claiming to be, but not just claiming, but showing and proving who and what he was. Because no matter what leader you look at in this day and time, none have shown and proven what Panabab has shown and proven with Egypt of the West. You know, Tamaray. In Edenton, in the heart of, you know, one of the most racist town in America, Edenton, Georgia. So that's the fear. The fear is to have different generations growing for the children. That's the fear. They wanted, by them taking Panabab Yanun, they was like, man, they still going, because they had Tamaray. That was 2002. Then we got to take Tamaray. That was 2004. And been trying to come at us ever since because they wanted Nuwapu to die. They wanted us to be eliminated. They don't want us here. They didn't expect us to still be here 15 years later, still spreading the good news, still spreading Wunuwap. They didn't want they didn't want to see children out there propagating Wunuwap. They didn't expect the scrolls of eyes to come out. They didn't expect the actual facts in the Patrak, the land. This the devil didn't calculate 15 years ago. They thought they was going to take the head and everything was just going to die. But it's a genetic doctrine as well. You know, so that was the fear. The fear is that they saw an incarnated being by way of his works. Meaning you could look and say, it's something different about that person. And they saw that and they're like, yo, they building pyramids here? There's a whole theme full of Egyptians and they all black. They all got most of these things that we see in this temple are all from Tamaray. Almost all these statues are all from Tamaray. And this was just a small portion of what we actually had. So this is a part of the fear that they have for Nuwapu or of Nuwapians. They feared that we was going to redo it again. Like he said, I want to teach y'all how to build with stones again. Meaning rebuild the real pyramids. You know, back again. You know, because once we start doing that, we'll start having a power. We're living in a new day and time here. We're living in a day and time where we're in the sun cycle. Nature is working with us, not against us. Nature is working with us. Everything is pointing towards us taking over this planet. We just have to reawaken those genetics back up. We have to just give them everything back. It's hard to when you're integrated into his society. It's hard to when he set up a system for us to lose. This is why they took the land, because we was creating a system outside of his system. Was that the last question? Okay.
I just wanted the name of that documentary.
It was called The Pyramid Code. It's real good. You could find it on Netflix, YouTube. All right. Yasar Tawhat for coming out again. Once again, for new Outformation class. Tawhat.